Hey everyone, Yoyston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. We are back for episode 4. I am joined once more by Royen, episode 4 review. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great.
This is a weird episode, man. It's just such a weird episode for me.
Yeah.
I'll let you go first, but first, preface here is spoiler review. This will be a spoiler review for episode 4 of Rings of Power if you have not seen it yet. Do watch it, or if you don't care, welcome. Anyway, Royen, real fast, what were your quick thoughts about it?
I think overall, I would consider this to be kind of, I don't really know. It was like you mentioned, it's a weird episode. There are parts that I thought were pretty good or fine. Parts that I was just kind of like, eh. There wasn't anything that was like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, please end this. Please. But there wasn't anything that I was like actually excited about happening, if that makes sense. It was just kind of like passive for most of the episode. So I guess that's like a 5 out of 10.
Interesting.
Sort of. But I don't know. Maybe it might be lower just because I didn't feel like, as far as the plot, a lot of things moved forward. But as far as like enjoyment, it was just kind of meh. I don't know.
Meh. No, I feel that this is definitely for me like the weirdest episode. I can't remember if I said that last week too, but for me, really fast. It's just like there were moments that I actually thought like scene to scene varied quite a bit. Some scenes I was like, wow, let's go, and then the next scene I was like bored out of my mind, or I was like, oh, that is dumb as crap. But I'd probably settle on a 5 out of 10 right now, which is weird because I think I retroactively have to bring episode 1's review probably down to a 5 as well, because I also felt like this one was better than episode 1, just like last week's. But
I agree. I think episode 1, it's like it was the opening to episode 1 that was great, and then everything after that was kind of like, downhill, pretty heavy.
Exactly. For real. So. Cool. Yeah, we're changing the format of these reviews just to get more conversation between us and look more specifically at certain moments. That way we don't repeat ourselves. Mm-hmm. So really fast, before we jump into plotline to plotline, I forgot to pull up the polls. I gave a poll to YouTube and Twitter. I did look on Facebook. I couldn't find a poll option other than in like a Facebook story, but... no, I'm good. I don't need to do Facebook.
I don't think Facebook is the way to go. So,
yeah. Let me see here. Okay, so starting with our Twitter poll, this was 390 votes, and so episode 1 was worst so far. Got 13.8%. Mixed bag, leaning bad, 26.4%. Meaning that math. 39 again about 40% was in the bad arena, and then like 60% was either leaning good or best so far, with 33.1% being mixed bag leaning good and 26.7% saying episode was best so far. However, we moved to YouTube and the difference is always kind of stark here, which is just interesting to me from like a pollster point of view. So 5.2 thousand votes. 30% of it said worst episode so far. 30%
wait. 5.2 thousand versus like 400 on Twitter. That might be where our variance is really coming from, but we'll see.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know if I read that in the past, how many people actually voted on it, but 27% said mixed leaning negative. Then 30% said mixed leaning positive, and then only 14% said great or best episode so far. So 57% saying like overall negative, 44% saying positive.
Interesting.
So yeah, it is. I think for a lot of people, for a lot of people this was the worst episode so far. I don't know if I would say that.
I don't think
some people it was the best.
I don't think it's close to either of those.
Yeah, it's really in the middle. So we'll jump into it. Let's see. All right, so we'll start with Galadriel/Numenor's plotline. Let's see here. I did like the dream sequence. What do you think about that, Royen? The dream sequence at
the very opening. I actually have it in my notes here. I thought it was like from like a story perspective, I was kind of a fan. but it's just so awkward when you have the practical effects that the actors are like standing in, and then they have that opening, and it's CGI behind it. Like, I don't know if it would look. I don't know if it would look better with like a practical like painting, like a stage painting, like they used to do back in the old days.
Oh, interesting.
But at least on my computer screen, it was really awkward because as the camera panned, that background would kind of skip like an old video game, whereas in the foreground with the characters, it would be much more clear. So sorry, that's like a really small nitpick, and it really doesn't make a difference to the score all that much. But it's just awkward. It's just funny that you asked about the very beginning, and that was like that's the thing that I have notes on it for. It was like. I like
skip it. Yeah, I mean, if it doesn't look great now, yeah. I like how we are getting more of the idea of where this plot line is going, because it just helps with some of the like the lore narratives. Like clearly, we're talking about the sinking of Numenor here, and spoiler alert for the Silmarillion, that happens. So well, and two, it's really a great idea for. I like how they gave this dream to Tar Miriel as well, because Faramir has this dream in Lord of the Rings, and Tolkien had that exact dream. Not exactly, he wasn't holding a baby or whatever it was, but he had the dream of the wave coming up over the land like himself. So it's a powerful thing to give anyone that specific dream, the downfall of Numenor, and Eowyn actually had that dream in the Peter Jackson movies.
Yes, she did.
She talks about it to Aragorn. So it's pretty interesting. And so moving on, we got some more from Pharazôn. I'm coming to really like Pharazôn in this show, which is probably not a great thing. I
love Pharazôn's character.
Yeah.
And I like what we're being able to see.
The actor is so good.
Oh yeah, he's so great.
Yeah. It's like, his whole like speeches and stuff. Although I don't know where they got the wine. Bring out the drinks for everyone. I'm like, what? He's standing in like the middle of the town.
He's got like 5 or 6 girls, just with like they each have like 6 wine glasses apiece. Like it's not even close to enough to give that whole crowd wine. It was such a weird touch, but I love the speech before it. We get to see a lot more of Pharazôn's like outlook, and we get to see the way that he's drumming up support, and how you get to see like how somebody could take over Numenor like he does. Spoiler alert again for the Silmarillion.
It's kind of interesting.
Like spoilers at this point. Yeah. So.
yeah. It's actually also at Akelebeth, the Silmarillion. Where we're starting to see the takeover, but that is funny. That's a good political tactic. Just like politician has like 6 wine servants following him around, just like, oh, drinks for everybody. Even though you don't know where it came from, but dude, I kept saying to myself over and over what you said the first episode review. How is this like How is this so aggressively mid? Like it's so strangely unique, this show, and some of the scenes. It's like, wow, I've never seen that before. And then the next scene, it's like generic and tropey as anything ought to be, like much more than it ought to be. And then like also Galadriel is a barbarian, man. I always thought she was a sorcerer if I were to class her in D&D or something, but she's a barbarian. They really surprised us with that one because she is stupid, angry, and ridiculous. She got herself thrown in prison
for nothing. She gained nothing.
For nothing. No, and she was all mad about it too. I'm like, you are dumb as a rock, Galadriel. That's what happens, man.
Galadriel she does not have knowledge of, I was really hoping that she would be a bit of a smarter character, or she would grow to be smarter, and I guess she still can. But it's yet another episode where she makes a dumb mistake out of pride and just general like it's not even just pride at this point, it's just being stupid. And then we have another character that is literally thousands of years younger than her with so much less experience lecturing her,
being like,
here's
how you gotta,
like, here's what you really gotta think about here. It's like, come on, man. Like,
yeah,
why can't we make?
You can't just run head first at.
Why can't she be the one coming
more
up
politically
with this?
savvy, or like I have a feeling that, again, to avoid the sort of Mary Sue problem or whatever anyone would want to call that, to avoid that, the show writers made her extremely good at some things and then just extremely, like, unbelievably bad at other things. There's no way that she would be the commander of the Northern armies based on the show's own logic. She's just not smart enough. She's just not strategic enough to be the commander of any army. I would say she's maybe at most like a private level. Like, you know, she's like, you know, she's rank 3 in the Etten Wars. She's no rank 15. She's rank 3 in Lord of the Rings Online's Etten Wars. And, like, there's no way, because she's just not smart enough. It's so easy to manipulate her because you know what she's going to do. She's just going to rage. She's just a bull in a china shop. That's all she is. And it's like, up to this point. Obviously, she has a character arc in front of her, but I don't think that means that you have to make her so stupid and angry from the beginning of the show. You can have a character arc without being like a 0 out of 10 in terms of, you know, like intelligence. You can start at a 5 or a 6. You can start at a 7 or 8 and then grow to be this 9 or 10. You don't have to start at 0, this mindless, heedless, I'm not going to use my brain, I'm just going to run through every problem. There is a tempest in me. Yeah, I got thrown in jail. Oh, that's unfair. Well, yeah, that's what happens because you're not using the head. You're only using your brawn. And that's what I mean, is that's not Galadriel at all. At all. Any stretch of the imagination. That's not Galadriel at all. And she's by far easily the most, like, standout flaw in terms of characterization in the show so far.
And I mean,
again, she has a character arc, but yeah.
It's more than just like, okay, the show has made her dumb. The show has made her dumb, and it doesn't work within the show's own, like, narrative that they're trying to tell, because they talk about her and they've made her this character that's basically her purpose as far as in Numenor is to be like, I have been alive for so long, I have seen all these problems, and they're not gone. You can't just like wish that your problems are gone, because I've seen it. I've been there since the beginning. But at the same time, they have this character who's constantly surprised at how unfair the world is to her. It's like, haven't you just been lecturing on like every other character you've met about the problems you've been through? Have you learned nothing? It's like,
nothing.
Man.
Yeah, she totally has learned nothing.
I like fought Morgoth like 1,000 years ago, but I can't believe that this random human is going to, you know, toss me in jail when she has all the power and I have none. And I've made her very upset. That's so weird. How could I have ever seen that coming?
It is. Yeah, exactly. How could this have happened? It's like you went to the queen and called her out in front of her subjects. Yeah, you're lucky she didn't take your head for that. Like, are you kidding me? Oh, this might be a 4. The more we talk, whenever we like talk through things, I'm like, oh, it just like the score gets worse because the flaws stand out so much more. Galadriel talks about like when she has these scenes with Tar Miriel later on. You know, we've seen things. We're kind of farsighted. Like we see things that other people haven't, or we've been through things that other people haven't. It's like,
not you.
Yeah, but you've learned nothing. Like not you, not your version of this character. Maybe a different version of Galadriel, one closer to the books, but not this version of Galadriel. Because, okay, so something about politics, right? Is you see when somebody knows how somebody else will always react. When a person is very predictable, it's easy for that person to be manipulated by politicians, by strategy, and all that kind of stuff. When they are a one-trick pony, like a bull in a china shop. Like, okay, Galadriel will always be angry. She'll always throw somebody in prison. She'll always be a fighter. She'll always choose fight over speaking, over something. It's so easy to manipulate that. So I'm like, maybe that's what Tar Miriel is doing by the end of the episode of like, oh, she's going to lead an army against these people. But really, I'm just going to manipulate her from the sidelines because she wants to fight, so I'm going to let her fight, you know? It's like, it's just so one-dimensional, I guess. That's what I mean. She doesn't have to be so good a warrior. You can turn that down, but she doesn't have to be so dumb. You can turn that up. and still have a really intelligent, well-made character arc of a character that's like seen wisdom, she's seen things, she's been through experiences, but the ways of men really surprise her, and that's where the character arc comes in. It's like she's very used to dealing with elves, perhaps, and with how elves think very long-term, but she's not used to this short-term mentality. She's not used to humans who think only within decades rather than centuries or millennia. And it's like, you can have that arc where it's like, oh, I have to learn how these humans work and how they do things. But like, having an arc where you go up to a noble in her own court, you call her out, and you get mad when you get thrown in prison. Then they go to let you out of prison, and you take down all 4 guards immediately.
Yeah.
Ryan, is it like, imagine if she was a character and you're in like a D&D campaign. How annoying that PC would be. How annoying she would be as like a character within the campaign. It's like, all right, what do you choose to do? I'm going to roll to intimidate. Okay, that failed. What are you going to do? I'm going to attack them. Bro, you don't have to.
It's tough because they want her to be the leader of this force. I think that's where this plot is going. They want her to take, command of this Numenorian basic force, essentially, along with probably Elendil. Yeah. But at the same time, she's constantly berating her allies, and it's like, at this point, except for the plot, I'm not sure why anybody likes her. Like, we have a couple characters that like her. Yeah. Oh, Elendil likes her. I think Isildur, like, he hasn't talked to her at all, but I think he likes her because of the things that his dad taught him as he was growing up. I think Tarmiriel is now beginning to like her a little bit more, at least just based on the last couple scenes. But I just don't.
Yeah, but like,
I know she's gonna throw it all away in an episode. So
yeah, exactly. And like, I feel like Tarmiriel is beginning to like her, not solely because Galadriel is like getting her to like her, but because we saw the leaves of the white tree beginning to fall, and she was like, "Oh crap, like if we let Galadriel go, Numenor's gonna fall." And it's it's like, I think that's why she's like, okay, I'll listen.
Interesting turnaround from a scene earlier being like, I need to send you away because if I don't, Numenor will fall because you were in the vision. It's like, all right, that vision kind of turned around on its head. Moving away, though, what did you think about the other Numenorian kind of character? Isildur got some more to his story. We got an introduction of a new character that is Pharazôn's son, Amazon original.
Yeah.
And he had like 6 lines.
Yep.
What do you think about that, guys?
That's a great question, and I'll ask you the same. But for me, it's like having that blossoming romance, which is what I'm assuming they're probably going to go for between Elendil's daughter and Pharazôn's son. I'm like, okay, like maybe we can see where this will go, but right now it feels kind of generic for sure. Isildur, though. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Isildur wants to go west. Isildur wants to go west of Numenor. And that is... My biggest problem with the show is easily the writing. Again, when I make fun of Galadriel and all that, and I say she's a stupid character, it's nothing against the actress. I think the actress is doing a great job. She seems like a fantastic person, but it's the writing for the character. And it's the writing for the character of Isildur, who wants to go west of Numenor, break the ban of the Valar, for some reason, for no reason, really, that I just don't get. Why does he want to go west? It's like the Arya plotline in Game of Thrones. It's like, why would you want to break the ban of the gods to go west? You have no reason. It's just because it keeps calling your name or whatever. Like, it's so, that kind of stuff bothers me because it's generic. It openly, brazenly breaks the lore. And I just don't get why you have to include that kind of stuff.
I don't know at all.
Some of the other...
I was just saying, I don't know at all where his plotline is going to go. Because it doesn't make any sense. Like, are they going to have him basically just sail out there alone? But except he's not. Because he's like, oh, I want to go west. And at the end, he's like, oh, I'll go east. I'll go help out. I'll go serve. So I don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah. He's like, I gotta test that round Earth theory that's floating around. I gotta go east so I can go west. Yeah, it's strange. Like, Um, yeah, I some of that plot is okay. I did one thing that was cool. I've kind of dogged on a bit of Numenor for sure on some of the Galadriel writing, but one thing that was cool. It's funny. It's not even the writing. It's not even the characters. It's just like fan service through props. We saw Narsil in the background.
Yeah.
We saw. I want to say we saw Dramberleg, Tor's axe, and maybe Tor's shield too.
I think we did.
Just these like Numenorian relics, which were in the background. That was pretty cool. But again, that has nothing to do with the story or the plot. I'm just like, oh, that looks pretty cool.
They like to like name drop random people too. It's just like, I don't think it's not just a Numenor plotline. It's like across the show. It's just they'll just name drop somebody and then immediately move on in conversation. It's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird. It's like that's not enough, because I totally agree with you, Ryan. It's like they do that a lot, but it's not enough to have a good story. You know, that's just fan service kind of, you know. So that plot was overall, I think Galadriel's plot was okay. Some of the Numenorian stuff was all right, but my goodness, they really dug this character into a hole. And I just don't get that they had to do that with Galadriel. I just don't think. Elendil is great. I should mention for sure more of the positives. I think Elendil's awesome.
Every scene he's in.
I do wish he was more of a lord.
He's great. Yeah. It was weird that
he's definitely a scene stealer for sure.
He called himself like just a petty lord, and I was like, no, not quite, but all right.
No. Yeah. And also that's kind of awkward. It's just like that delivery. It wasn't really his fault. I think it's just the writing again, where he's like, just a petty lord, and then he kind of laughs to himself, and then Galadriel and Tarmiriel just like turn away from him and just start talking. I'm like, okay, weird. But dude, Elendil's giving it his all here, my man. But like the writing is just kind of dog. It's kind of rough. So yeah. Well, turning to something I thought was actually a better highlight of the episode. Something I actually felt like I felt comfy when I was watching these scenes. I don't know. There's no great way to describe it. I felt like at peace. Was the Elrond, Celebrimbor, Durin plot for this episode. I thought that watching Elrond and Durin get along and get their friendship like kind of rekindled, the discovery of the Mithril, which it's funny when at the end of episode 2 when we were like, what was that? Was that the Nauglamir? Was that the Somar? We didn't even mention that it's probably Mithril, and it definitely we knew that it probably was, but like I don't know why they showed it in that kind of way. If it was just going to be Mithril, I was like, ooh, the elves are going to be mad about this, and it's like, they don't really care. They think it's cool. But I did like the that scene for those scenes for as much as I could. Like the whole Eärendil plot of where Elrond says that he wished he had more time with that. Some of the moments definitely feel like, okay, this isn't Elrond, but I still like this character in the show, but it's definitely not Elrond. You know what I mean, Ryan?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I also know what you mean. Like these scenes, they felt comfy, and I feel like even if that's not Elrond specifically from the books, this storyline between these elves and dwarves feels more Tolkienian to me. It feels like the way that he wrote, which was optimistic. It was about, relationships, overcoming obstacles, coming together. There's like just this great kind of, I mean, it's not like a banger line, but it's a great idea that it's like no secret is worth the sacrifice between friends. It's like that feels Tolkienian to me. And even though there's like one weird moment where it's like I'm looking at Elrond, he's like, does Elrond have like super hearing? Like, is he channeling his superpowers right now to hear across the hall? Other than that, like I felt like everything was, if it wasn't necessarily by the letter of the book, this storyline feels like it's trying to be by the themes of the books a lot more, which I greatly appreciate.
Yeah, I agree with you. The differences and the friendships between elves and dwarves. It is a little weird that it's Elrond being the friend based on just the lore, because I feel like in the lore it should be Celebrimbor and like Narvi versus Elrond and Durin the Third, but it's okay. Like that's not a huge lore break to me. And yeah, the conversation's not just here, but even in past episodes that the two characters had, I'm like, that's pretty Tolkienian. And Disa, she's a pretty good character, I would say. She's pretty entertaining to watch, and definitely not bothersome as much as I feared that the dwarves would be with some of those promos that we saw of them like flirting and stuff. I mean, dude, they are, these two characters are kind of really wanting to pounce on each other all the time. It's kind of weird. It's kind of funny, but I thought it would be more annoying than it was. I felt like, Disa was, I didn't know what her role was going to be, but I'm like, okay, it's okay. It's not that bad.
I like Disa.
It's just kind of a little weird.
I like Disa a lot. I think it's just when they have a little bit of that sexual tension, it's not really all that much tension. It's just, it feels a little kind of out of place, but they aren't doing it to the point where I'm like taken out of the scene. What'd you think about Elrond and Celebrimbor's very short meeting where Celebrimbor just kind of dropped a huge bomb on Elrond?
Yeah, I knew your father. He said that you would save my life, and I forgot that until the script told me not to. Or that my fate depended on you, but I forgot about it till right now. It's funny. We gave some crap to just like how the actor looks for what we imagine Celebrimbor, and while I do think they could have given him a black wig or something, made him look a little younger. There's $1 billion or whatever it is, like half $1 billion in this season alone. I feel like they could have de-aged him a little bit and made him look more Celebrimbor-y. But I love the actor. He is one of the best actors in the series, and he's doing a great job. Like, he chews the scenery. He interacts with things in a really like interesting manner, kind of like how he interacted with the Hammer of Feanor and stuff. He chews the dialogue, like he goes for it, man. But then the dialogue kind of doesn't match his acting prowess. I feel like, your father told me my fate would lie in your hands, and I forgot about that until you looked like him.
It was such a weird moment because it makes him feel so old. Like, I think that was the biggest criticism of this casting, is that this character just seems a lot older than what Celebrimbor should kind of look like.
Yeah. And
just like this moment, it just really kind of hammers home. It's like, this is old man Celebrimbor, by the way. Forgetting things. It's like, just like Radagast of old, right, guys? It's like...
Yeah. Or Arendil, yeah. You look just like your father. I thought that was kind of a neat introduction with you look just like your father, and I thought there was something I was gonna say, but I think Anatar has probably been introduced only off screen, to be honest. Like, why is he building this forge already unless Anatar exists? He was like, we need this forge by spring,
Yeah, there's a lot of that plot that we don't know a whole lot about. Things like, why does he need it by spring? Why is he building it? What does he want? I think that is going to come into Anatar later. Speaking of Anatar, I don't know if you're ready to move on from the elves and dwarves and move into the Southlands, but as we predicted,
let's get it.
Adar was not Sauron, even though they keep calling him Lord Father, which is a weird title and name. And Arondir straight up asks him, he's like, why do they call you Lord Father? And he just looks at him and he's like, I'm not going to tell you.
Only one who sees, only one who knows. Yeah, I'm going to speak about roots and rocks and stuff.
It's like, we're going to rebuild this world, new world order. We're going to do it all from the ground up. And Arondir's just there like... Who are you?
All right. I feel like Arondir was kind of like, I kind of recognize you a little bit. You look like an elf, but I kind of don't. But it's like when you see somebody in public after 10 years and you're like,
is that you?
Is that you? Yeah, that's what it kind of felt like to me at first, where he's like, you look like an elf and you speak Quenya, but but I don't know you. Little off-putting, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Also, that's what I was going to say with Celebrimbor really fast.
Go ahead.
There's no way this Celebrimbor and this Galadriel would have, like, Celebrimbor would be in love with this Galadriel. You know what I mean?
No.
Because he was in love with her in the books.
He's way too old.
There's no way. And he's way smarter, wiser, he's more kind, he's more caring, he's more compassionate. All these things that Galadriel just is not in this show. So
yeah, I don't know. back to the Southlands.
Back to the Southland. Sorry. Adar. So, what did you think about the orc sadness sympathy where he was like, "It's okay," and then he like stabs him in the gut?
That's how I knew it wasn't Sauron. Honestly, I think that this is. I do think that this is an elf. This is an original character elf. I think he's probably turned in a way almost. I would imagine if. This is just early game predictions, everybody. I got nothing but my gut. I'm going off here. I think that this character's story is that they are an elf, and they're probably one of the more older elves in the show, despite them being original. I imagine that this guy's like whole stick is that he sees the old corrupted elves in the orcs, and he sympathizes with them a lot, to the point where his mind's kind of been flaunted by Sauron into making him a minion of some kind. That's my early game prediction.
That would make sense. Like maybe a half changed orc. Like maybe he was. Like, I don't know if he ever. I don't know. He was being tortured. I
don't know if he ever got tortured. He definitely has like a really weird like burn scar on the left side of his face, which I guess that there's a story there. But this feels like almost similar to what Celebrimbor is. It's like this is an elf who at first probably got tricked into helping Sauron, and then now is just doing it full time. But I don't know. That makes sense. I'm going off of nothing here, but just gut. We didn't see a lot of him.
Yeah, for sure.
So not a whole lot to say other than the moment I saw him, I was just like, "That's Benjen Stark." And
that's what I said. Yeah.
And I mean, this whole plot surrounding this weird hilt, it feels a little weird, but at the same time, it's not weird enough to the point where I'm just like, all right, this is stupid. It's cool. I liked Arondir's like helping the kiddo and the single mom out. The slow motion of that whole battle scene felt a little weird, especially with like the music. It reminded me a lot of the fall of Boromir in Peter Jackson's film. So I was just like, oh my god, is Arondir actually just about to die? Like 4 episodes in?
Yeah, I wondered that too. Well, especially because he did the. So let's say, Royen, you're an archer, right? You're light armored. You're an archer. You're running from an army. Do you turn around to start shooting one arrow at a time into the army?
Not without cover.
Without running backwards, too.
I would hide behind a tree. He was not. He was out there flaunting it. And
he was not. Even in the field, too, when they picked him up after the sun came up.
That was the part that was the most dumb, because they just stand there in the field looking back at the tree line. We should have like 10, 15 seconds before the orcs actually show up at the tree line, where they're just kind of standing there with their blades out. Granted, he's out of arrows, so that's fine. I just don't know why they're not running. And then the orcs show up, and they're like, the sun, we can't follow him. And then we have like 3 or 4 orcs just standing there sneering at our heroes, until the heroes turn and run away, and then they start shooting arrows at him again. It's like, I guess maybe in my headcanon, the archers are setting up, they're getting a bearing on him, but still, it's like, it just felt really awkward. But it was a really pretty shot.
It was. Yeah, dude, and even when the arrows flew by the screen, I was like, they're not flinching, like, at all. Maybe Arondir wouldn't, because he's like a warrior, but like the other two, I'd be like, oh my gosh, that almost killed me. I
actually think it would be I think it would be a much better idea if they had directed the human characters to flinch at what are ending up being CGI arrows, which is probably why they didn't, because they didn't know where they were going to be. But I think it would be really good if they were flinching and Arondir wasn't. Just try to like separate the humans from the elves like on screen more. I think that's something that Peter Jackson did really well. It's like when Legolas is on screen, he doesn't act like all of the humans around him. And Arondir kind of does.
True. Such a Chad. Yeah. Yeah, well, Arondir did catch that arrow and like, shoot it
sick,
back, but like
more. I guess
I would say more like he doesn't act like them, but they act like him. Is probably
Yeah.
what I would say. It's like they seem so cool and great and good at everything that they're like an elf, but no, it should just be a reindeer, you know?
I don't know.
So, yeah, when Theo, the kid, was running around the village and stuff, and that, I feel like this feels like when they do this kind of stuff, it feels like the least Tolkienian plotline. I mean, did that kid stab that sword into his arm, and then just like the sword came out on fire and stuff, or whatever it was? Like the ashes and the fire made the sword come back, and I'm like, all right, that kid is bleeding out. You know, like let's go. He's got a certain amount of time, but then he sat in a well for like 8 hours. And I'm like, oh. Okay, he's not bleeding out. What? Didn't he just stab himself with that sword, or like the edge of it? What? All right, whatever.
He sat in that well
Plot,
for like
consistencies.
a long time, and then he decided to get out during night when he knew the orcs could chase him. It's like, if you're gonna sit there for hours, go all in, kiddo. Like, let's go till dawn. But
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, because like when he got in the well, it was like because there were clouds out, and then he waited till night, probably thinking to stealth his way out. But orcs are there. Yeah. All right. Well, whatever. Who needs plot consistency when you've got a script that you're writing? Yeah, I mean, unless Theo's just kind of dumb, like it could be the case.
he definitely
I don't feel like
acting
that's
like
a great excuse.
Dumb kid. But
yeah.
But
at the same time, he's not like dead. You know, he didn't get bodied because he's kind of acting dumb.
And
Not yet.
I kind of like where his character is going. I almost hope that the show doubles down into making him actually like kind of fall into this service of Sauron thing that they had going on at the end. Like, I hope he's not just going to whistle blow that guy in like the next 2 episodes. Like, I kind of want to see him go deeper. I want to see like this kind of corruption storyline with him, just because I haven't seen that before. I don't feel like with like the young kid character actually like basically turning evil. I'm not saying that he has to go all the way to the point where somebody has to kill him, but I would like to see a little bit more of that. So
that would be cool. People are thinking he could be like a Nazgul or something, and so Ryan, I agree. That would be cool to see him.
He's not a king, so it'd be weird for him to get a ring.
Well, I think they say too, like, you could make the argument, it's like, okay, there were great sorcerers, great warriors, and kings. Maybe not all of them exactly were kings. Some of them definitely were, but some were Númenóreans, so I imagine they weren't probably all kings. 3 of the Nazgul were Númenóreans.
You know what? You're right.
Halbrand is probably...
Halbrand screams
So
Nazgul.
it could be that. Yeah, 100. I hope that's where they go with him, is it's like... At the end of one of these seasons, we see him being a king and like ruling over his land, and then we just see this guy come out of the shadows, be like, "Hey, dude, I got this ring. You want to buy?" You know,
he like opens up a trench coat. And he's like, "Look what I got!"
Trench coat, yeah.
No, I do hope. Like, in order to fight against the generics, I hope that they make decisions like this, where, you know, they kind of, you know, right now all of the characters that we see. All of them, they all look like if you put them in a room together, they'd get along after about 10 minutes of Galadriel yelling at everybody. And then, which I think that they should move away from that. I think that we should start following character storylines that don't align with each other. And we start following plots and almost make the audience want to root for 2 different like storylines that will actually come to hit each other in the head. Like, I think that that's really cool writing, and I really like to see how that plays out. I haven't seen anything that looks like they're gonna do it yet. It's just I see a door where they can do that, and I hope that they do, because, you know, we've talked about it. I think this show is really struggling to find not only its distinction from other large scale shows that are out right now, but also just this distinction from being like an all right show that I'll watch because it's in season to a show I want to go back and rewatch. Like, that's the difference between a great show and a good show to me. I think this is just, it's working on trying to be a good show when it should be, you know, making like a little bit, just being a little bit more brave. They're already kind of, you know, they're kind of messing with the lore too much, a little too much for me to like actually, appreciate in any way. But at the same time, they're doing it cowardly, if that makes sense. I wish that if they were going to mess with the lore, do something cool, do something brave, which I'm not seeing. I'm just seeing Galadriel be annoying. Right. I'm seeing Elrond be... Elrond's my favorite character right now, despite the fact that he's like kind of not all that very Elrond. Yeah. But I guess I just like the actor playing him. I like the storyline that they've got set up for him. I think his writing is the best, which is kind of a low bar, but he definitely feels like a wise character, which is what Elrond feels like in Peter Jackson's films, feels like coming through the pages of the books. And I appreciate that. Whereas Galadriel is also supposed to be an even wiser character, and she's not. Okay, but we're not doing anything with that. We're not actually making a storyline where Galadriel is actually flat out wrong and being punished for it. Yeah. She's just annoying.
Exactly. She is definitely the most annoying character, I would say, on screen. And again, it's just the writing's fault.
There's no Harfoots, so no Harfoots this episode.
Oh, that's true. So
she was the most annoying character in this episode. But and speaking of
for sure, that's fair.
I think I'm still gonna stick with my 5. We talked about some things that kind of brought it down, but just at the end of the day, I don't know. There's like a boost for not having Harfoots in here, and also I think I think that the things that we found good in this episode are we didn't touch on them a ton, but I do think that they're pulling weight.
Yeah, true.
So.
Yeah, they are. And I feel bad, like, not touching on the things that were as enjoyable. But there's something to be said about, like, bad writing kind of takes precedence. Like, you can have a really great scene, or great scenery, rather, like great imagery and visuals and all that kind of stuff. But, man, bad writing is just much more glaring to me of an issue than like, a visual is good. Like, you could make such a better show overall because of the writing, with much less of a visual budget. We've seen it done in the past. So I think I could probably stick with my 5. I could also see moving down to like 4.5 because there were definitely some problems that it's like I actually enjoyed myself, I feel like, when I was watching this, but reviewing it now, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of weak spots. That's just kind of how it is. So yeah, like 4.5 to 5, somewhere in there. In terms of what's different for this episode, like, everything's different, almost everything you could point to, even the references that they make to certain things, it's like, while those references, since they're contextually isolated, since it's like, oh, Eärendil, he sailed into the sky and that's it, and it's like a couple sentences of context, that's pretty much right. That's pretty much how the lore says it. Other than that, though, if there's any extended reference, usually they change something. Usually they change, again, Elendil being a smaller lord, or this character of, like, Adar definitely didn't exist. That's a bigger change. Things like that. So, Royen, before we wrap things up, we'll probably make this a bit of a longer review, because I'm realizing this now. That was our halfway mark. This is episode 4. So, real fast before we call this review a wrap, kind of a bit of a mid-season review. How do you think the show's going so far? Were you disappointed? Were your expectations met so far with this first half of the season? Because a lot of what we got in the trailers, we've gotten so far. So what do you think? So kind of mid-season review.
My hopes, this is below where I was hoping it would be. It's above where I expected it to be. But it's still kind of stuck in this mid position. After watching a lot of those trailers, I did not expect this to be good at all. I expected it to not only be annoying, but also to just kind of be like poorly put together, just because I thought the trailers were so poorly put together. But there's clearly a lot of love into positions. You talked about how the writing is kind of like a huge glaring problem, and it really kind of overshadows a lot of good things, and that's absolutely true. But I can still see good things where people put a lot of effort into this, and I want to, I find appreciation in that. So when I'm watching the show, when I'm sitting down watching it, I think I'm generally having a good time. I'm generally being like, all right, this is, fine. I don't think it's excellent by any degree. There are other things that I could watch that I feel like I would enjoy more, but not to the point where I'm actually putting them on. So I think that
Fair.
while that is true and watching the show is fun, I think every time I go to think back, it kind of just loses a sheen of splendor a little bit. Not to the point where I actually think it's like absolutely terrible, but I would say that this is better than like season 8 of Game of Thrones, but even that was just completely terrible. And after every episode, like while I was watching, I was like, what is going on? Like, what are we doing here? Like, that's not what we're talking about here. We're not to that level, but it's clear to me that this could be great. It could be excellent. And I have no idea how to make a show. I have no place in this business, in this industry, but at the same time, I really feel like it's too cautionary. It honestly feels like this was written by 10 people in a room rather than 1 or 2. And I think that is probably the central point of my criticism, is that it feels like 10 people wanted to make something and their voices came together and we just kind of got this average thing. It's not cool. It's not like excellent in any specific point because it's just kind of average. It's like, when a compromise makes both people mad, and sometimes that's cool. A lot of people think that's cool, like for government stuff, but not for art, And I consider entertainment and art to be, if not the same, at least intertwined. And so I think that's my biggest criticism, is that it feels like it was written by 10 people rather than one person or a couple people working together. It was 10 people coming in from 10 different directions to just make a circle, which is very basic. That's my take on it.
I totally agree with, and I see what you mean with like that it feels very coalition-y. It feels very just like put together by so many minds. And I feel like what they did was probably get the rights to the Lord of the Rings and stuff before they built a show, before they even built a script. Like, you get the right, you should get the rights to something after you're like, ooh, I've got this great idea. Like, I've got this amazing idea. Let me see if I can make it work. But I've got some rough drafts of like a script I'm throwing around that I've been working on for a bit because it's been like a labor of love for me. And now I'm going to turn it into a movie or a TV show. But I feel like they were like, awesome. We've got ourselves a Game of Thrones, ladies and gentlemen. And it's like, what are we going to do with it? Oh, we'll hire writers to figure that out. But right now, we got to celebrate because we just got the rights to the Lord of the Rings. It's like, that's what it feels like to me. So it feels, Amazon is a production company in terms of like items and stuff. You assembly line, you put it out there, and then they'll bring it to your house and all that kind of stuff. And it feels kind of like the show is like that. It's like, okay, we're going to make a show. We're going to put it on the assembly line in parts. Other parts will be made more by artists and people working really hard on things. But otherwise, it'll kind of just go through the assembly line. People will work on it and whatever. We'll throw it out there. It should make us back some money and some profit and stuff. Like, it definitely does not feel like an entirety of a labor of love. And that's disappointing to me.
But not unexpected.
Overall, I feel like not entirely unexpected, because I would agree with you, Royen, where it's like, I think we were cautiously optimistic. We had hope that there would be some good things in there, but at the same time, it's like, oof, if we're wrong, we're going to be really wrong. I do think we were kind of wrong, but not super wrong. Yeah, if that makes sense. It's like, we were wrong, but we always feared that if we were wrong about being cautiously optimistic, it would be like a 2 out of 10, not like a 4, 5, 6 out of 10, which is kind of where I'd put the mid, or at the mid season here. The first 4 episodes I would put at a 5 out of 10 overall. I think it was about an aggregate of my scores. I think episode 1 for me now is about a 4.55 ish. The second one was a 4 for me. The third one was like a 6 from me, and this one's like a 5. So aggregates pretty nicely at around a 5 out of 10. And that's pretty rough when you're talking about Lord of the Rings, right? It's just average. It's just like an average show. And the rewatchability isn't quite there for me. I'm enjoying House of the Dragon far more right now, actually. I did start watching that one and I caught up. And House of the Dragon is much more a labor of love than I feel like this show is. At least that's how it feels. And I do feel like that is a better show, even with its internal logic. Because putting the lore aside, and this show has been pretty dismal to its own lore, to its own source material. But putting that aside, it's even pretty awful to its own internal logic. Versus House of the Dragon, where I'm like, yeah, there might be a couple things that are not logical in its own rule set, but it's generally pretty on it. So House of the Dragon feels just like, to me, a better show overall right now. We're about halfway through both season ones of Rings of Power and House of the Dragon. I think House of the Dragon is 10 episodes, though. So it's, it's... If you're going to make that comparison, that's part of it. And I feel like the reason that these episodes kind of are cool when you're watching them but slip away as you think about them is because they're very much a spectacle. Going to Numenor for the first time, seeing Numenor for the first time on screen, or hearing that music, or whatever it is, and it's like, yeah, like when you think back to it, it's like, yeah, that was cool, but then Galadriel just tried to stab Elendil in like a back alley. Why did she try to stab Elendil in a back alley? And you would never think like Tolkien would have ever written something like that. And that's just the biggest part, is this doesn't feel quite like Tolkien. I'm a little bit let down by the music. I said when we were like preparing for this show and stuff, when we were watching the trailers and stuff, I was like, almost objectively, this music is just going to be amazing. And it's good. The music's good. It just doesn't feel super... Maybe my opinion on the music... Yeah, it does not hit different. Yeah, it hits similar. It hits similar because to just like a lot of other fantasy songs and things. So yeah, that's kind of disappointing for sure. I'm hoping that maybe over time it'll get better, or it'll get better to me, like these songs that we've already gotten. But this show is very much, to quote you, Royen, I think this is where I'll wrap up my mid-season review. To quote you, this is aggressively mid. It is insanely aggressively mid. And it's too bad, because it shouldn't be. It should be amazing. It should be great, but it's just not. It's just not. Is it the worst thing I've ever seen? No.
It's not even...
By like, it does the source... Yeah, not even close. It does the source material better than other adaptations have done their source material. So there's that. It's better by its internal logic than like Game of Thrones season 8. So it is, yeah. It's not even close to the worst thing I've ever seen. No. But is it close to the best thing I've ever seen? Absolutely not. So.
And I honestly, I think that this show is better than Wheel of Time, because I think that the parts that aren't necessarily the story that I think that Rings of Power does really well, were just done so much better than Wheel of Time. Because if you take away the changes that they made to the Wheel of Time story, everything felt awkward when I watched it. It was an awkward show for me. I remember almost every scene, I'm just looking at it, I'm like, why is it kind of like this? Why does this feel off? That I don't get that feeling from this show. So I think that Amazon at least is improving in its fantasy usage. But both these shows were kind of made around the same time. I'm pretty sure that Lord of the Rings began production like before Wheel of Time did, and now it's airing after Wheel of Time did. That's just how much time was put into this, and it's disappointing that it wasn't amazing because of that. I think that this kind of just got stuck with way too many hands trying to knead the dough, and so it just kind of came out really mid, really average. And
it did.
I predict that I'm going to finish the season. I'm going to be like, all right, cool. And then I'm going to be going back to not thinking about it, except in the context of of our podcasts where we talk about it in news and things like that. I won't be thinking about it. And that's not what they were going for, I don't think. But that's just what it is.
Yeah, no. It is. Yeah, I think those are my final thoughts too, really. It's forgettable. It's not entirely rewatchable. It's not like the cultural impact, at least not in the positive way. It's not a positive cultural impact like Peter Jackson's movies were And, you know, it's like you can't make that comparison all the time, even though I feel like I do make it a lot. But it is Lord of the Rings as well, and it was cinema. And it was 20 years ago with not quite the same budget. It was a lot less budget, and it's much better films. So, well, yeah, that is what it is. But overall, yeah, thank you so much for joining me, Royen. Always good. Look forward to this every week for sure. So thanks for coming on and talking about the show with me.
Thanks. Yeah, I know. I love coming on and talking about it, even if I find the show to be somewhat disappointing. I enjoy talking about it and reviewing it. So, yeah.
Yeah, same here. Awesome. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts about not only episode 4, but just the mid-season at large. I didn't really plan to do anything special for the mid-season. I think when the whole season is over, what Royen and I will do is kind of the week after the season ends is we'll schedule a live stream. And it won't be like last night's live stream where I just started it suddenly and I was like, all right, let's roll with it. But we're gonna set a live stream and talk to you all about the season at large, kind of do a lore review of it and just see where it stands in its overall quality. But yeah, don't forget to let us know what you thought of the episode and the mid-season at large, the first 4 episodes at large. So real fast, thanks to our Valar tier patrons, Peter Sheppard, Jonathan Putnam, Mark Kralick, Blair Scouten, Merten, John Hume, Sam mcbee, Matt Sibbach, Elizabeth Calvert, Maz Gibs, Rhys Jenkins, Adam Petrlik, Brandon Glidden, Molly Sullivan, Daniel Burns, Anthony Harmon, Dorwin Gray, Arthur, Merlin, DJ Vaught, and Dale Davis. Thank you so much to all of our patrons and YouTube members. My friends, thank you all so much for joining us on this adventure. Until the next one.